everybody. This is Heidi St. John. Thanks for tuning in today. You guys have found me at my little corner of the internet. Today is Tuesday, the 29th of March, and today I am blessed and encouraged to have one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. Rick Green is in the studio with me today, and we're going to talk about freedom. Stick around. I think you're going to be encouraged. All right, you guys, so a lot going on. I'm going to be heading to Round Rock, Texas this weekend. Come out and see me there for Teach Them Diligently. This is the beginning of my speaking season, and as I have told you guys a whole bunch of times, I'm normally out doing probably 15 to 20 events in the spring and summertime, but I have whittled that down to 7 this year so that I can be here in Congressional District 3 for my run for Congress. So if you want to see me, those events are limited. You can go to HeidiSt.John.com/events, and that's where you can track me down. It's a little bit like Where's Waldo this year, but I will be in Lansing, Michigan. I'm going to be in Pigeon Forge. I'll be obviously in Round Rock, Texas. I've got a few places I'm going, and I'm looking forward to seeing you coming out and support those organizations. You guys know how important it is right now, especially after COVID and the lockdowns. These homeschool organizations need your help to continue to bring these conferences to you, so I hope you guys will turn out for those. All right, without further ado, I'm very pleased today to have my dear friend Rick Green in the studio with me. You are at the Homeschool Resource Center.
I am loving this place. I mean, I wish y'all could see it. I wish you could come here and just walk through this whole thing from all over the country. We need one of these in every community in the country. Incredible. I've never seen anything like this for homeschoolers.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I know, it's awesome. So right outside, I think I've told you guys before, but right outside of the studio, which when I'm not in here, students are in here. So this is actually a working studio for the students to learn audio visual, and they're learning how to do create their own podcast and do those kinds of things. But right outside the studio is a state-of-the-art ceramics studio, and those kids are out there just learning how to make money.
Phenomenal.
Because when they leave here, if they like what they're learning, they can start their own businesses. That's a lot of what we're gearing up here to do is bring back the trades so that students can avoid the stupidity of all these woke universities and just, do not pass go, do not collect $200, just go straight into the workforce and collect $2,000 instead. And save your sanity in the meantime.
I can just tell, though, the energy, the opportunity to be around other students like this, the mentorship, all the people involved. You got the dance studio. I mean, it's phenomenal. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's amazing. Rick is in town right now for the Freedom Tour, which we just did 2 of those, finished up that. And what's your impression coming up here to Washington State besides the rain? We actually did sunshine for you one day.
Today is gorgeous. Okay, the rain all the other days, no fun. But I missed the tornadoes back home. There were tornadoes yesterday at home, and all I had to do here was rain. So it's a pretty good trade. I left the women and children, my own family, back at the tornado. That's not good, but anyway, they survived it. My wife's tougher than I am. Anyway.
Yeah, she's tough. Don't mess with Kara, man. She'd take you out.
That's right. No, it's great. I mean, last night even, just the energy among the people, and you could tell they're fired up. It was a packed house, full room. Everybody was excited. Just their response to Rob McCoy, to you, to just the whole idea of citizens taking back their government. Yeah. You could tell there was a fervor. It's good.
Yeah, it is good, and it's time.
Yeah.
It's really time. I mean, one of the things that we've been trying to do here in Southwest Washington is really just wake up the citizenry to say, this is a government of the people, by the people, for the people. It won't function the way it's supposed to function unless every single one of us participates. And I know this has been your mantra now for how long ago?
Don't age me. The gray hair's bad enough. I mean, you have to actually admit how long I've been doing this. 30 years.
30 years.
30 years. I mean, we started Patriot Academy 22 years ago, but I've been doing this kind of thing for 30 years. And no. I think part of the theme last night, you could feel it in the questions people were asking, in the conversations afterwards. Part of the theme was everybody's got a role, everybody's got a part to play, whether specifically in your campaign or in other things that are going on, or even just the national movement to restore the Constitution. You've got a role. Everyone that is listening to this right now, watching this, everyone that knows in their guts something's not right. They can sense it. They feel it. They know. And they're looking for a way to make a difference. That's why you need to be tuning into this podcast, getting equipped, but then sharing it. You got to be a force multiplier. And that's what I sensed. Nobody in the room last night I felt like was, just sitting back, listening, and, this is good. I'm glad some other people are solving the problem. They're all on the edge of their seat going, okay, what do I want to be a part of this. What's my, so that's good. That's really good.
It's really good. Well, and we're at the jumping off place. And one of the things that we hit on the other night, and I've done this many times at the podcast over the years, is we're at the jumping off place right now. And we were fighting for the Republic because we've got people in our government who are espousing socialism openly. And they're talking about it now. In the public square, we're talking about socialist ideas. There was a guy who ran for it was either city council or mayor in Portland, Oregon a couple of years ago. And this guy supported Mao. It was unbelievable. And there were students, we were kind of doing a man on the street, and these students were like, yeah, this was a great guy. This was a murderer.
Wow.
And our universities have screwed up our kids. Our public schools have failed us. And we have allowed this to happen on our watch. And so now there's like a rebirth of freedom. And you know that I was doing your class on the Constitution, your Constitutional
so
Live.
Many people last night that came up and said, hey, we just did the class. That was so cool. Yeah,
we got a lot of Constitutional Live graduates right here in Vancouver, Washington, coming here to the Homeschool Resource Center, about 250 people every Sunday night, which was great. But what I loved about it was, I'm playing your videos, and the auditorium seats about 400 people. So we had probably half the auditorium is full, but the lights are out and the big screen's playing and your voice is up there, and people they are engaged.
That's awesome.
They're engaged, and there's these aha moments. Like, I said at the end, so I'll come up at the end and I'll just do a Q&A with them or say, hey, what was your biggest takeaway? How many of you guys thought how many of you guys were told that we had 3 co-equal branches of government?
Yeah.
Every hand
there
in the
you
room.
Go. Yeah.
So we're learning something.
So you busted that for them.
Yeah. You busted it, and I just facilitated.
Well, it gets even better though, because with all the truth bombs in Constitutional Live, that is nothing compared to biblical citizenship, which you guys are going to be rolling into.
Yep.
When you get Kirk Cameron doing the truth bombs with the Monument to the Forefathers, you got Tim Barton doing a response to the 1619 Project and telling the truth about America's history. I'm telling you, people are just it's gonna blow people's minds. But give them things to then do, right?
Yeah,
so it's not enough to just go, man, I'm angry because I was lied to in my education system or whatever. You got to be able to have things you can actually do with that, and that's what that course is really going to drive people to.
And I appreciate, and I had a guy I was talking to the other day, who's been part of the trucker convoy to Washington, D.C., and I so appreciate what these guys are doing.
Yeah.
The flag waving and all the patriots are coming out, but that's not going to do it.
Right.
So we've got to actually elect people into positions of authority. We have a leadership crisis.
That's right.
In the United States right now, from the school boards to the White House, we've got a leadership crisis. And I think conservatives, as a general rule, at least this is what I know of conservatives, people are they want to get a job, they want to go to church on Sunday, want to sit down, have a beer in the evening and kick their feet back and watch TV. And then we want to do our part, which we think is just voting, but it's not enough anymore.
And it's not even, even like what you mentioned, showing up at a rally or whatever it might be. You alluded to this last night when we were closing out. You were saying, it begins with us. We have to do, basically, as a person, I have to say, I'm going to be a student of freedom. I'm going to do these things. And I was thinking about the Reagan quote where he talks about if we, forget what we did, we won't know who we are. And he warned of an eradication of the American spirit. And, he followed all that up with, it's time to begin civic ritual and teaching history again. Now, that doesn't sound exciting, right? Like, that's not sexy. It's not grab the pitchforks and storm the gates and all that kind of stuff. But he was exactly right. It's quite literally study. It's opening up the Bible to know what God says about government. Yep. It's opening up our Constitution and our history. So doing those videos is kind of that. It's digging into the history and saying, where did we come from? Who are we? How does the system work? What were the inputs, kind of the secret sauce that produced the greatest nation in the history of the world? Where did we go wrong? And now how do we get back? That's really what you're doing. And so it's that first action step is just saying, hey, I'm willing to be a student again. I'm willing to study freedom and then take the action steps. As John Hancock said, it's not enough to pray. You got to act as well.
Yeah, that's right. And it's not too late. Rob McCoy was in the studio with me a couple of days ago, and we were talking about the fact that it's not too late. I think there's people are discouraged right now. I mean, they're watching what's happening, the damage that the Biden administration is inflicting upon this nation right now. Here's a guy who knows he's violating the Constitution, actually said it out loud, and then went ahead and did it anyway.
Right. They don't care.
Because they don't care, because they know they're not going to be punished.
It's
they know
all about power. They have the power, they're using it.
That's exactly right. And I think they know 2022, God willing, is going to be a bloodbath for these people, and they're going to lose a whole lot of seats in the House of Representatives for sure. So they're going as hard and as fast as they can right now. Yeah. And we can take this time while they are in a full court press against freedom. We can take the time right now to study freedom and to study the founding fathers and to study the history of this nation and understand what it means to live in a constitutional republic. Most people don't even know what it means.
If we don't, we're losing all of this. I mean, people cannot take their freedom for granted anymore. And sometimes I'm a little too blunt, but the fact is the left has been winning in this country.
Absolutely
they have been
true.
taking ground like crazy, and it's time for us to dig in our heels, push back, and say no more, and then start taking that ground back. And that requires the knowledge, right? We've got to study and do those things, but then it takes the courage to stand up for that, to speak that truth, to go out there and fight for it. Last night I was talking a little bit about just the fact that another Reagan quote where he talked about freedom's a fragile thing and no more than one generation away. But he said, if we're not careful, someday we may be telling our children and grandchildren what it was once like when men were free in America.
That always just sends a shiver up my spine.
Because it's happening. We're looking at. We have to explain to people sometimes right now, what was it like just 2 years ago when you were free in this country and the things that you could do. But I was just reading on the way over here. There was an article about a dissent basically that Alito and Thomas just put out today because they didn't take the case from Washington, and I forget the church or the group, but there's basically a suit coming out of your Supreme Court here in Washington on whether or not you can fire someone that works for a religious organization because they are living a life very much in the face of and against what the organization believes in. So in other words, think of a church or whatever it might be. And
Christian college.
Yeah, Christian college. You've got an employee that's basically flaunting, living a lifestyle totally against what that organization stands for, or not hiring. Now, this suit is actually an attorney that's an atheist and all this suing a Christian organization saying you have to hire me to do your legal work, and because you didn't hire me, it was discrimination. I mean, so it all comes back to, do you have the right? Think about this place right here. Do you have the right to make sure that the people that work in this homeschool co-op here, I'm sorry I said co-op, you call it a resource center, right? But to work in this resource center, that they would actually be Christians, or that they would adhere to a biblical worldview. An atheist could come in and say, no, you have to hire me. I want to teach whatever it is out
atheism.
Here. Yeah, I want to teach atheism to these kids that are trying to escape that very thing. I mean, that's the kind of freedom we're talking about here. Do you have the right to make those decisions, or can government make those decisions and force it on you? And we're on the precipice.
We're at the
this thing
jumping
could
off
go
place.
either way.
And we're watching now, and we've talked about this last week too, that Roe v. Wade at the jump. There's so many important things happening right now in the United States. I talked to Mike Ferris the other day, and he said he believes Roe v. Wade is going to be overturned.
Amen.
We think we're going to live to see it overturned in our lifetime, which is what will happen. Then people, I think, often misunderstand. They go, well, it's going to be illegal.
Fight here.
Now they're going to take that fight back to the states, which is where it should have been in the first place. Never should have been federalized in the first place. But right here in Washington State, abortion was legal long before Roe v. Wade. So long before Roe v. Wade came in and put this really a judgment on the entire nation, it was legal here in Washington State. And I think it will continue to be until people in Washington State rise up and say, no, we don't want that here anymore. In Texas, you guys have passed a heartbeat law, right? And that's gone. Is that going out to the courts after that?
It's actually been through the courts, I think, 6 times now, both the Texas Supreme Court and the U.S. Supreme Court. And we've won every step of the way. We're saving about 100 babies a day. It's a phenomenal law. A friend of mine actually is one that passed it. We started together in college Republicans at 19 years old.
Get out.
He walks into this meeting. He's got the two, the baby feet on his lapel, and I was like, I saw it from across the room. I was like, hey, you and I are going to be fast friends. We're going to be working together. And now, 31 years later, 32 years later, he passes this bill, and he's a senator in Texas, and it's phenomenal. It's really unique. The strategy behind it was really powerful, and so now other states are starting to, because it basically survived, without getting into the details, it survived all the challenges that have typically defeated a heartbeat bill in states, and so by lowering the legal limit there on abortion to such a short period of time, I'm not kidding, 100 babies a day being saved. So anyway, Brian is a hero, and thank God for him. And now other states are starting to file it. In fact, I think it's already gotten through a couple of houses. It hasn't actually been signed by a governor in another state, but we're close.
That's exciting. Yeah. This is an exciting time. It's an exciting time to be alive. It's an exciting time for Christianity. And because we've been building up to this point now for decades in this country, and now we're here, and it really does require every single one of us.
I think we're at a place where we have a window of opportunity to convert an entire generation to liberty. That people are hungry, they're listening, they're asking questions they never asked before. You hear it all the time, everywhere you go. Same here. People that would have, eyes glazed over on this topic today in the past, they're now saying, "Wait a minute, can government tell me make the medical decisions for my kids? Yeah. Can government secretly advise my children to do things and not even let me know about it?
Can the president say I need to wear a mask in the airport?
Can you?
What is going on?
It's unreal. It's unreal.
What is
so
going
people are
on?
hungry. We've got the window of opportunity. We've got to take advantage of it, though. I don't know how long that window will be there, but I think it's our time. This is God's raised us up for this moment.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Which is why I hosted the Constitutional Live class here, and why we're getting ready in the middle of my run for Congress, dude.
Like you didn't have anything to do.
I ain't got nothing going on.
Nothing going on.
I got nothing going on.
14 events a day, going over here, running over here. I don't know how you do it. I mean, you're juggling a lot right now.
It's a
doing
lot.
an amazing job at it.
It's a lot. Well, thank you, and I appreciate you guys came
You
up
were
here for
on
the
fire
Freedom
last
Tour.
night, by the way. I mean, I was like, whoa, I felt like a fanboy. It was good.
The fight here in CD3 it's intense right now.
Yeah.
And I think we're learning a really hard lesson. You know, you can't look at an R or a D behind
That's right.
somebody's name anymore. You got to do your homework, and we're lazy voters.
Yep.
We don't want to do our homework, and because of how the race has been running here in Washington State, I mean, I've had a heck of a time just getting my voice out there. And so the answer to that has been a lot of prayer.
Yeah.
We pray a lot at the congressional office. We're just praying every day, kind of around the clock now. We got teams of people praying because this is a spiritual battle.
Yeah.
And as we said last night, 90% of the issues that we're dealing with in our country right now are moral at their root.
That's right.
These are moral issues. And you said a quote, and I never can remember, but you said America. What's the quote? We have to be governed. It was made for a moral people.
Yeah, moral and religious people, and I like Benjamin Rush's take on it. He was a signer of the Declaration of Independence, and he kind of goes through what will make a constitutional republic work well. And the one thing he said you cannot go without is the Bible. That if you don't infuse biblical education into the children of each generation, the constitutional republic will fall apart. So if we can't self-govern, which is what the Bible teaches us to do, then the government has to become bigger and bigger and bigger to basically keep us from raping, murdering, and killing each other, right? So the less morality, the less liberty. That's how it ends
I thought
up
the
working.
guns were killing people, Rick.
Yeah, somehow that gun's pulling that
Pretty
trigger
sure
all
I
by
heard
itself.
Sure, I heard the guns were doing it here in Olympia. We have just passed, I think it's 12 of the worst anti-police. They're actually passing now to a legislation that's keeping us from having a magazine.
Yeah, they're going to limit the magazine size.
Yeah, they're going to limit that, and it's so interesting.
Completely unconstitutional, by the way.
Right. And when we've got people in these positions of authority that don't know the Constitution, or frankly just disregard the Constitution, which is the worst case scenario, which is I think what's playing out frankly in Olympia right now. It is incumbent upon the people to elect new leaders. So I'm going to ask you a question that I get all the time. People are very frustrated because
Do I
they
get to phone a
see.
friend?
Yes, you might need to. We'll see.
Okay.
Election fraud.
Oh yeah.
People saying, what is even the point of voting?
Yeah, why should I even show up?
Because,
They're gonna steal it
Dominion,
anyway,
they're
yada,
going to
yada,
steal it
yeah.
anyway. I was talking to my friend Mike Ferris about this when I was in Virginia last week, and he said, Heidi, the surest way to lose a battle is just not to show up for the fight.
Exactly.
So
right.
what do you say to people who are like, forget it, there's too much fraud, they already own it. I'm gonna build myself a bunker in the mountains of Idaho and call it good.
Say number one, you're dreaming if you think there's ever been an election in America that didn't have fraud in it. I mean, there's always cheating because there's always the depravity of man at play. Somebody is going to try.
Somebody forgot about the hanging chads. I didn't forget about that.
Exactly
this
right.
is long before Dominion.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So it's always been there.
It's long before Al Gore invented the internet, or
even before
right
that,
around
yes.
there.
I mean, you could go back to 1876, 1868. These were elections where you had states that turned in sometimes 3 sets of electors for president. You had states that had 105% of their population vote, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's impressive. I don't know how they pulled that off
This
either.
is in the 1800s, right? So,
Right.
I mean, this stuff
Nothing
is
new under the
nothing
sun.
new under the sun. Solomon was 100% right. Now, does that mean that we just sit back and say, oh, I'll just go vote and not worry about election integrity? No, of course. You've got to fight all the time to make the election as secure as possible and stop cheating as much as you possibly can. And so even when the cards are stacked against you, which in Virginia, as you mentioned, Ferris there in Virginia, I mean, Virginia had all the blue, it's a blue state. They had all the absentee balloting, no voter ID.
Yeah.
All the dream Democrat cheating situations were there. And yet, because we showed up with 3,500 boots on the ground, showed up at all those polls, watching all this stuff, we were able to still win and reduce the cheating enough to where we could still win the election. So even in the states like Washington, where you're probably not going to get the election integrity bills that you want through the legislature, we can still fight hard to reduce the cheating as much as possible and hopefully enough to still win. In states like mine, in Texas, which is supposed to be a red state, we still haven't returned to pure paper ballots, which is what I think you got to have the paper ballots. You can put your hands
got to
on.
have voter ID.
Voter ID, all of those things.
You cannot get a beer without showing ID.
Anybody that says, "Oh, that's voter suppression," I've been asking this for 2 years now. Show me one person that wanted to vote that wasn't allowed to vote, and they still can't find me one person.
Right.
I mean,
right.
all
it's
the
a
stuff.
lie.
It's a lie. It's an absolute lie. Yeah.
It's a lie, and it's coming from the people who want us to think that we're systemically racist and that this is systemic racism at work. They're holding back the black population, which frankly, what an insult to these people.
Exactly right.
What an insult to these people. You go down to the streets of Harlem and say, hey, I heard you guys are having a hard time getting voter ID, and they'll tell you to shut up and go home.
Exactly.
Go home.
Exactly.
Shut up. Go slap
My favorite
your mama.
was Joe Biden himself, calling it Jim Crow 2.0, which I'm assuming he was part of Jim Crow 1.0 because he says he'd been around for 147 years, right? And it was the Democrat Party that did Jim Crow, of course. And that's the whole disingenuous part, right? I mean, you have all these Democrat politicians claiming Jim Crow, and you're going, wait a minute, y'all are the ones that did Jim Crow. You're the ones that kept blacks from voting.
Right.
You're the ones that had white-only primaries.
You're the ones who wanted slavery.
Exactly. And fought to defend it and then did all the segregation. I mean, it's been the Democrat Party that's been the racist all along.
Yeah.
And
Planned Parenthood, the whole thing.
Yeah.
This is Margaret Sanger, who was a eugenicist who wanted to see the black population annihilated, which is why she was so in favor in pushing abortion, which is why you see Planned Parenthood in the middle of black communities right in the heart of the inner cities, because they still have that philosophy. Yeah. And so for us now to not talk about that out in the open is just plain old ignorance. You got to be putting your head in the sand.
And this is not a partisan statement. This is just a historical fact.
Yeah.
The Democrats have always been the racist party. They've always tried to divide based on race. Yeah. They continue to do that. Still doing it. The Republican Party was founded based on ending slavery. I mean, that was the whole point of the 1856 Republican platform. I think it was 7 out of 9 planks. And then in 1860, it was 9 out of 11 planks, all about ending slavery, equal rights, equal justice under the law. So those are just facts. You can go look at the platforms yourself and decide what you want to be, Republican or Democrat. But this whole idea of it's Jim Crow 2.0, I just get so upset because we're doing everything we can to make it possible for everybody to vote, but make sure that everybody only votes once and then it's only legal people voting. That's all we want.
Yep. And you would think that the Democrats would want free and fair elections. So when you see HR 1 coming out of the Equality Act, or whenever they say for the people, I always tell people just take whatever title the Democrats give it, turn it on its head, and you have the actual title. The federal government wants to federalize our elections, and if that happens, we will never see free and fair elections again in this country. And we've been talking about this for a long time, the need to have these elections as close in locally as we can possibly get them. And then you allow for citizens to come in and be a part of the process, which is what it should have been in the first place.
That's right. 100%. No, you're right on. I mean, there's a clause in the Constitution that allows the federal government to modify election law. And the whole point of the Founding Fathers putting that in there was they were concerned that some states would just not even participate in federal elections. They were like, because back then the federal government was not that important as it shouldn't be.
Right. It had a very limited role, which was the point in the first place. And now we've just, turned in this behemoth.
That's right.
That really, so here's my next question for you is, this is the next question I hear all the time. So what? The Congress is never going to give back its authority. They're never going to. But if you sent a bunch of constitutionalists there who were committed to shrinking the role of the federal government instead of expanding it, which is what we've seen now for generations, just expand until we've gotten to the point now where they can snap their fingers and the CDC, which is just an agency, right? Just an arm of the government can wave its magic wand, and all of a sudden we've got masks in airports and indoor masking, and we got vaccine mandates and all this other kind of craziness. This comes down from the fact that we've got a bloated government wildly outside of its jurisdiction, does not understand the proper role of government, and the only way to fix that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is to begin to have a rebirth of freedom in the United States where the citizenry gets involved and we begin to send people to Washington, D.C., who actually understand the role of government and want to return it to that role.
Well, you mentioned the perfect example, the CDC and all these rules. Look, the mask mandate in airports, for instance, the Senate has already said, no, stop this.
This is like the bane of our existence.
Right. I mean, we
fly a lot.
If you have to put that thing on, you are living by a lie. I mean, you're just, So, but the Senate has said, stop this. I mean, even in this evenly divided Senate. So just imagine if Heidi was in Congress instead of Jamie, if you had 5 more Republicans replacing Democrats in the Congress, we would have gotten rid of the mask mandate through
a long
Congress.
time ago.
I mean, so it is. It's not. We don't even need that many more to go to be able to see a big shift in Washington, D.C. So it's going to take both. We need people like you fighting from within Congress for exactly what you just described. Why do bad men do things? Because good men and women aren't there to stop them, right?
That's right.
And, everybody always says a good guy with a gun will stop a bad guy with a gun. We actually need a trained good guy with a gun to stop a bad guy with a gun. Well, you also need trained men and women in Congress to stop the unconstitutional activity. So when people go file a bill to do whatever it is that's outside of the Constitution, if you don't have enough members of Congress to say you can't do that, we're voting. Not only are we voting against it, we're speaking against it and saying, show me in the Constitution where you have authority to do that. That's the type of thing that we need people like you for in the Congress and also in the state legislatures.
Yeah.
In the city councils, you need people running for every city council and every school board that will show up and say no to the other members. Everybody wants to be collegial, they want to be nice and all this kind of stuff. Forget that. It's time for robust debate and us being willing to stand up and say no. So you're 100% right. The only thing that's going to change it is sending good people to Washington that will change it, and then sending good people to the state legislatures that will also overrule the federal government, which most people don't realize. The state, everybody says the supremacy clause, Fed Trump state. Well, that's true, but it's only supreme if it follows the Constitution. Specifically says that the laws made in pursuance thereof. And then there's this wonderful little opportunity for the states to ultimately have the supreme final say and overrule the federal government. So the Constitution is designed in a way to have this give and take and fighting back and forth so that no one gets to decide on their own. The president right now acting like a dictator without anybody pushing back against him. The courts haven't been willing to say no, what you're doing is wrong. Congress hasn't been willing to say no, what you're doing is wrong. The states haven't been willing. You've had a couple of governors that have done it, but not enough. So we've got to get back to this idea that, hey, that conflict's good. You need to have that separation of powers and those checks and balances. Anyway, that's a long way of saying we need people like you in Congress to say no, and we need people in states, we need people at the local level to say no as well.
Yeah, it's true. We got an opportunity right now. The 2022 elections are coming up, and that's why you guys came up here was for the Freedom Tour. We've had a great time having here. In the last minute that we've got, I want to talk about the biblical citizenship class because that is starting on April the 3rd, so Sunday. So I just finished Constitution Alive. And I made most of them. When I have to fly out of town, people will come.
I was wondering, even when you started the class, I was like, how in the world is Heidi going to get to, I don't know if y'all did the 6-week or whatever it was.
The
6-week class. I was like, there is no way she's going to be in town 6 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
So I didn't expect you to be at all of them. Which is the great
close.
thing about coaching. You don't have to be at all of them. Somebody else can open a week or two for you.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it just what I saw come out of this, and you saw this in the graduates, that came to see you the other night.
They were beaming, man. It
was
like,
well, they're learning something.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you feel, knowledge is power. And all of a sudden you feel like, oh my goodness, I understand something now. And you can tell when these pundits, these knuckleheads from the Washington Post, and we see, articles coming out of our liberal newspapers, and all of a sudden people are reading it with new eyes because they're going, oh no, that's actually wrong.
If you have truth, if you have the plumb line to measure those lies against, immediately.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I loved the way that you came and gave a history of the founders and just debunked some of those lies right off the top. So it was really exciting. But we're moving that from that now into biblical citizenship.
Awesome.
We're going to start on the 3rd of April. We meet every Sunday here starting at 3 o'clock because the Homeschool Resource Center, even on Sundays, is busy here. So we do classes here. Lots of things are happening here. So there are a couple of days that we're going to be having to shift the times just because we have to move around other groups of people that are here at the center. But we want you guys to come out for that. So if you're local, if you're in the Portland, Vancouver area, people are coming in from Longview, they're driving in from Hood River, they're coming in from hours away. We start at 3 o'clock. They're going to be 2 days that because of my crazy schedule, we're going to do 2 classes instead of 1. Just so that I can finish in time to actually gear up for the primary because the primary is coming up in August. Yeah. So my life is, what did Steve say to me the day? He said, Heidi, you are busier than a one-legged man in a butt-kicking contest.
That sounds like, that's good.
You are not wrong. You are not wrong. But we want you guys to participate, and Rick has convinced me to open up online, but not if you're local. If you're local, we want you to come.
There's nothing like being in the room with a couple hundred fellow patriots that love the Constitution, that love God's Word, that love the country, that are looking to restore. That energy, I'm telling you, you will come, you'll realize, you'll look around the room and you'll go, I'm not alone. And then you'll learn these things that Heidi's talking about, and you'll go, wow, the principles of liberty still work. And then you'll leave going, there's something I can do about it. There's no substitute for being in the room physically and getting to have part of that conversation. And it's just like it really is that iron sharpening iron. You can feel it. You're sharpening each other's countenance, and you're leaving energized. Yeah,
it's going to be exciting. And so this is an 8-week course, which we're going to cram into 7 weeks. So, hang with me. but it's going to be exciting. And if I do it online, you said you can Zoom in a
Yeah,
couple
so here's
times
the
to
cool
answer
thing.
questions
I'll
live.
join y'all a couple of those weeks and answer questions. And for those of you that don't live even, within 5 hours or whatever you could do to get here, there'll be a way for you to dial in and watch with them and even chat in the chat, ask questions if you want. And so do that, because here's the other cool thing. If you'll do this from all over the country, and I think we could have thousands actually on this thing, then you will learn how to turn around and take the class into your community, and you be the catalyst for being a restoration of biblical values and constitutional principles. So you'll get to experience the class, learn things together, have that experience that we're talking about, but then take it back to your community as well. So we'll set that up. But if you live close, you need to be here physically.
Yeah, you need to be here. I'm going to be upset. Okay, we don't want that to happen. So I will link back to in the show notes today, and we'll put it up on my social media pages and also out through my newsletter, how you guys can register for biblical citizenship. And I'm really excited because I think we're going to see a resurgence of liberty in this country and people wanting to come back and restore this to the amazing constitutional republic that our founding fathers gave us.
You're going to learn so much. It's going to blow your mind. And it's a lot of really cool teachers too. I mean, you got Rob McCoy in there teaching, Jack Hibbs, Kirk Cameron, David Barton, Tim Barton, Rabbi Daniel Lappin, Barry Loudermilk, a member of Congress now. I forget who all's in there. It's a lot of people, and they're all bringing great perspective on this. But it's just, and Jeremy Borean, the God King from Daily Wire.
Isn't it a great idea? If people can bring their Bible study groups to it, churches
100%.
should be coming
and it's free. It's free. I mean, that's the thing. We give it away. So
you spoke the language of socialism, but only because
donors made it possible. They paid for you to take the class, basically.
So it actually isn't free, right?
Then at the end of the class, I'm telling you right now, I'm going to ask you to pay it forward and donate $5 or $10 or whatever, so that the next person can take the class too. But for now, it's free.
It's for free, and we're really excited to be bringing this to you guys right here at Firmly Planted Family. So the nonprofit organization is going to be hosting this. We cannot wait for you guys to come. Starting on April 3rd, like I said, come out here. We've got room for 400 people in the auditorium. We open up the coffee shop. So if you come about an hour early, you can start getting coffee and get a seat.
I might just fly in for it.
I know. We do. We got and we roast our own locally. And the honey that we're putting in our coffee, out here.
Nice.
We got beehives
that's
right out here.
That's good for your allergies. To have
know,
the honey
it is.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, you're not
to
wrong.
stop the allergies. Whatever.
Yeah.
Not meaning it gives you. Anyway, all right. Yeah.
He knew what he was saying. I knew. I speak Rick Green. It's fine. It works. Rick Green, you are a national treasure. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for flying all the way in here to help me with the Freedom Tour.
I never thought I'd come to Washington State to get inspired, but I am. I'm telling you, it's there's good stuff happening in Washington State.
There's good stuff happening in Washington State, and soon to get better, because we're going to be hosting Biblical Citizenship starting on April, not August. Oh, for goodness sake, that's my primary. Shh, I will not be doing Biblical Citizenship in August. Hopefully, I'll be winning a seat.
Somebody else will be hosting the class here. She will have passed the torch. They'll be rolling it. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. That's exactly right. Where can people find you online?
PatriotAcademy.com. PatriotAcademy.com. You can get the Biblical Citizenship class there. You can come to one of our constitutional defense courses. You can send your kids this summer to a state capitol near you and enjoy that. 16 to 25-year-olds, send them to us, and they'll get to experience their legislative process and learn some good leadership skills. That's another fun way to be involved.
I love it. Rick Green, my friend, thank you so much for coming. It's just been a joy. We'll do it again.
Let's do it.
We'll do it again.
Heidi.
We can talk about airports next time. That's our favorite thing to talk about.
If we haven't been arrested for not wearing our mask in the airport. Yeah.
Hopefully that's going to lift pretty soon. We'll see. All right. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it. You guys want more information on Patriot Academy and the Biblical Citizenship course that we are bringing right here to Firmly Planted Family, go to HeidiSt.John.com/podcast, scroll down, and I will have all those links available for you today. Thank you so much for your support, your continuing support of the sponsors of this show. One of those sponsors is Patriot Academy. We're really excited to be working directly with them to bring you guys great content 5 days a week, so be sure and check them out, patriotacademy.com. Have a great day, everybody. I will see you back here tomorrow at the intersection of faith and culture.